Hi, good morning. My name is Allison Mattivi. Thank you for watching today. I'm a school psychologist working at Nippenberg, Patterson, Langley and Associates. I work with families as a collaborative educational consultant. So after a student receives psychoeducational testing, I collaborate with parents, schools, and help ensure that an appropriate IEP plan or 504 plan is developed. In addition, I work closely with teachers in the classroom, implement a psychologist's recommendations in the classroom in order to best support the student for learning. So today I'm going to be talking about tips for homeschooling your children to get through the rest of the school year. Okay. I currently am also a mom of two. My kids are younger. I have an infant and a toddler. But I'm going to be continuing the conversation that Angie started last week in her video about homeschooling and this new place that so many parents are in and struggling with. I really want to focus today on getting away from the terms work time versus playtime and school time versus free time, right? We don't have to separate these things. We're going to talk about how to make learning more organic if you're feeling like you need to fill time for your kids so that they're just not in front of the TV all day. And we're going to talk about how this is all related to your expectations, academics, life skills, as well as executive functioning skills. So learning is not just straight academics, which you all know. And this time at home can be used to practice and strengthen your kids' life skills as well as their executive function. So we're going to start with expectations. I recently read something online that talked about parents and how what they're being asked to do is just not humanly possible, right? There's a reason you're either a full-time working parent, a part-time working parent, or a stay-at-home parent, because working, parenting, and teaching are three different jobs that cannot be done at the same time, right? So yeah, what we're asking all parents to do right now is all three of those jobs, and it is not easy, okay? So do the best you can and allow yourself to be okay with that. I know there's a spectrum of support everyone is receiving from their children's teachers in school. So, right, some schools are providing daily online Zoom classes where the kid is engaged with their peers and their teacher multiple times a day. Okay, and then they're just getting work for homework. And then there's others where they're getting work sent to them, but they have to figure out how to do it, almost how to teach themselves the lesson, which is where parents are coming in a lot. Or some kids are just getting optional work, right? Here's a packet of things you can do while you're at home. So it's a wide range. And then there's the whole technology piece. That's kid yet. Some parents are navigate that with them. Okay. So you might be feeling like you need to supplement what your child is receiving from the school so that they are getting more academics, okay? Just to give you some perspective, the Illinois State Board of Ed released remote learning recommendations, and that was to help support their educators in their state. So there's a table that I found that would be helpful, I think, for anyone to see what they suggest as minimum and maximum times of engagement by each student in remote learning activities, okay? So for pre-K, they're recommending only 20 to 60 minutes a day, right? Kindergarten is 30 minutes to 90 minutes a day. Grades 1 through 2, 45 minutes to 90 minutes a day. Grades 3 through 5, so our upper elementary school kids, only 60 to 120 minutes a day, right? So you could have an hour, right? Which is not a long time when you are home all day. Middle school, grades 6 through 8, they're saying if they're doing different classes, each class being only 15 minutes to 30 minutes a day. So in total for the day, that would be 90 minutes to 180 minutes, okay? So again, probably not as much as you would expect. And then high school students, each class only being 20 to 45 minutes. And the total for a day would be 2 hours to 4 hours, okay? So really high school kids would be expected to do the most, and that's not even half of a day. And about her video is not typical homeschool. What you're being asked to do is crisis homeschool because you did not sign up to be a homeschool teacher. Your kids didn't enter into this either willingly. So the remote learning won't be a lot, right? You don't need to supplement and fill your kids' times with all these extra academics that you feel like they might be receiving at school and try to meet standards because they're not at school, right? This is your crisis homeschooling, like we talked about. So let's go more into the academics part. So, like I just said, there are your academic times laid out, right? Which some of your teachers might be meeting that on their own, whereas others might not be. Okay. So I think that it goes without saying that no one is expecting kids to be doing even 20 hours a week at home of schoolwork. That's a lot for what we're calling like this crisis homeschooling. So let's focus on how to make learning more organic, since you don't need to recreate a traditional classroom. You don't even need to make a distinction between school time, work time, and free time. Now is a great time for passion projects. Okay, this can be done at all ages. Take something that your kid is interested in and run with it. Figure out, if they love trucks or dinosaurs or cooking, whatever it is, it can be anything. And come up with your kid what kind of project you're going to put together. So if it's an older kid, maybe they can read and then create something, write something, act something out, right? Shoot a little movie on their own. Younger kids can maybe read a book about something and draw pictures or create an art project with it, right? Depending on your kid and how self-sufficient they are, you might need to break this task down a little more. But what we know about kids is that when they have something that they are interested in, they will run with it. They will be more engaged. They can be more independent with it. And for those of you who need more time to get your work done or even your household chores, not necessarily, for your job, but things around the house, get your kids started on a passion project. Time, right? And you don't need a deadline or due date. It can be more relaxed. But sometimes what we forget is by your kids doing these passion projects and creating something, that this is learning, right? They're using school skills that you might not necessarily think are school skills, but it could be related to multiple subject areas. And then when in doubt, read, right? Set a time every day to have something with books or literature, right? You might not have the time to read multiple times to your younger kids during the day because of everything you have to do. And that's okay. And that's where audiobooks are a great thing right now. And with younger kids who are still learning to read, or kids who are having more difficulty reading, when you use audiobooks, it's really important to encourage them to follow along, to not just listen to it, but when they're following along with the text, it's also helping them with their fluency. Okay. Storytelling apps. There's so many of those right now, as well as YouTube has celebrities doing read alouds, which might be fun for some of your kids. Public library right now and are also doing live story times for elementary school students that can also be found on demand. So that could be something that you can look into. It doesn't have to be, like I said, you sitting and reading with your kid or your kid reading to you, which we do want that to happen. But again, that can maybe happen at one time in the day, but you can still have another time set aside for literature and reading. And let your kids take the lead in choosing books or topics to explore. Again, we just talked about the more interested they are in it, the more independent they will be with it, and the more excited they will be about doing it. So if they want to return to some comforting old favorites, even though for some of the older kids, you might feel like, oh, that you've already read that. This isn't at your grade level. This is too easy for you. Let them read those comforting books because they're reading, and that's what's more important than challenging themselves with the book right now. Right? Okay. So now we're going to move on to life skills that tie into academics. So don't get too caught up in what's writing, social studies, science. There's so much that can be done that are great life skills that you do in your everyday life and might not know about it, that you can tie in so much more during this time that all relate back to these academic areas that are so important for kids. So, for example, in the kitchen, right? Cooking and baking, following a recipe, learning the language and terms used in recipes, and what tools do we need to get out to make something. Math skills, all of that in the kitchen. Okay, I want to double a recipe. I want to cut this recipe in half. How do I do that, right? So many people, or just about everyone, has to plan 3 meals a day now for your family at home. That's a lot, right? So trying to figure out how do we do that? Get your kids involved in that. You can even make a little calendar and say, okay, let's have everyone pick a day and what dinner you would like to eat. Now, I know there could be some restrictions with what you have in the house, with when you're going to get to the grocery store, but that can even make it more exciting. And you have to think a little bit more. All right, these are the ingredients we have. What can we make? Right? You might have to give your kids choices depending on how easily they can go with an activity like this. And then they're also helping get food on the table for your family, right? So this is a great one, just getting kids in the kitchen. If you have older kids, they can help the younger kids with this one as well. And with your older children, you can also have them help plan the timing for dinner, right? So this is a great time management skill, asking them, so we want our family to eat dinner today at 6 p.m. Going to make this recipe. So this is how long it says to make, how long it takes to prep. This is how long it takes to we start preparing dinner, right? And that is doing math and practicing a time management skill when they actually start doing it. And it's real life, right? And then they're helping you get food on the table. So that is right, friends and family. But if you just have your kids sit down and write a letter to grandma, or even just draw a picture and send it to a friend if the child is younger, someone getting a piece of mail sent to them is going to be very exciting, especially in a time like this. And then your kid is practicing writing, right? Or they're just excited to draw something for a friend. Whatever it is, put it in the mail. That's a great activity. Playing board games, okay? Sometimes we might just think, oh, that's free time, right? That's something you can earn because it's fun. But board games are great for younger kids to practice following rules, to practice following directions. And then for older kids, there's so many games that have critical thinking skills involved. Just that. And then you could also use it as bond family as well. Building forts, right? And telling stories in the forts, right? Even storytelling is something that's a great skill that language arts teachers love to practice. And even talking about the sequence of events when things happen. First this happens, then this happens, right? And just building forts is something that they have to use. They have to problem solve. Will this follow? Can this stay up? How many people can fit in here, right? Critical thinking skills. And then fixing something that's broken. If you have something in the house that's broken, let's take it apart and figure out if we can make it work again. Or let's take it apart and see how it runs and if we can fix it, right? That's another great problem solving and critical thinking skill that is also fixing something in the house. And then outside, taking care of the yard, gardening, weeding, planting, all of those things, again, might seem like chores to you, but it's also just, that's science, right? And you can have your kids do this on their own. You don't have to be there sitting and talking. You could just, give them some tasks to do outside. And then later, maybe it's at dinner time, you could talk about it, right? That could be your time to reflect with them or debrief or to, kind of see about like what's going on in their brains when they were doing that. What are they learning? What did they notice? Angie also talked about chores, and instead of calling them chores, like she also mentioned, calling them task lists, right? We have tasks to do in this house because members of the family have to do tasks in order to keep our household running. And kids are going to see that even more now than they did before, right? They are home 24/7 with you, and there's a lot that gets done that needs to keep the household running. Trash needs to be taken out. Bathrooms need to be cleaned, right? Weeding needs to get done. Food needs to get prepped. If those things weren't done, your household wouldn't run. So explaining to the kids where everyone has to do their part, this isn't a chore. This is just something that we do every day to take care of our family and to keep our household running. And then creative art, right? Giving them materials to create something. You could even do things, if older kids are more into graphic design and things on the computer, they could create that way. It doesn't have to be markers and paper, right? Even younger kids, with my toddler, I'll give him egg crates and glue and pom-poms and all different things and just see kind of what he can do with it. And then counting money for younger kids, right? If I know math can scare a lot of people, but for young kids, you can be so concrete with this and just like give them some change and see like that, how much is it, right? You can do math with that. Older kids, even watching documentaries, there's so much right now you can stream. Again, finding something that might be interested in and appropriate for them at the same time. And having them watch it, you can watch it with them. Or, again, if you need to get something done, they can watch it as long as you know that it's an appropriate documentary for them. And then what happens after? Do they tell you about it? Do you have them write about it? Do they do a project about it? Right? So creating these organic things during the day that can help feed your kids' thirst for knowledge, as well as fill your done. And then the last one, Lego and block building, right? Again, might seem like, oh, just something that fills their time that's playing, but building with Legos and a great skill. Problem solving, right? Critical thinking, creativity. There's so much that goes with some of those things. So work time and playtime, right? Let's put those terms together. We don't have to separate them all day, every day. And once you get your kid set up with some of these things, right, you'll know how much you have to scaffold for your kid, which of your kid might need a little more support and might need a check-in every few minutes, or which of your kids can just, here it is, and just go, right, for a half an hour. So you just have to get creative with knowing your kids and know how much time you can get when they're doing these different activities. And you can add them into your daily routine. I know a lot of people are wanting routines or schedules right now. And, you don't have to be so specific every day. Like you could have your, reading or literature time set aside, outside time, all of those things, or the times they are doing straight worksheets for school. Because what we don't want is for you to just keep giving them more school worksheets. They're going to burn out, right? That's not what they want. And that's not what you want either. So making it more exciting, and then it almost is like they don't really know that they're learning, but they actually are. It's kind of like they forget that this is actually something that's helping me, but it's not straight math worksheet, right? So now we're going to move into executive functioning skills. And I know I talked a little bit about that in the beginning and just mentioned the term, and some of you might not know what that is, and that's okay. So executive functioning skills are essentially life skills. Executive function is a set of mental skills that act as a command center in the brain, right? So they help us plan, manage time, get tasks done, control our emotions, and also help with you staying focused. The brain doesn't fully develop until you're about 25 years old, which might sound crazy, right? But these skills are really needed not only to get through school, but to be an adult and manage life as well. So we need these skills. And your children who are not used to homeschooling are probably struggling even more with some of these skills than they did in school, right? Like even organization alone, thinking about how they stayed organized with their planner, and they had maybe their notebook and folder for each class. And now all of a sudden they're at home and that, they don't need all those different things for different classes, but they need a whole new organization system. And that may be hard to develop. So for time management practice for older kids, if they're able to, let them tell you what their plan is for the day. Maybe having a morning meeting type thing at breakfast time where you talk about the day and what it's going to look like and what's going to happen. And they can say, well, this is what my day is going to look like, right? But not all teenagers can do all do that, right? So you might need to support them with it. You can say, this is what looks like needs to get done today. How are you going to accomplish that? Okay. And that type of support might be able to get them to plan out their day. And if it doesn't, then you might need to make a list for them, right? And say, okay, this is what you need to get done. This is my idea of how you can get this done right now. So with younger kids too, you might even just make pictures or draw a picture saying like, these are the things you're going to do today. And even coming back and coloring it in or checking it off. Sometimes that physical act of being able to, check something off or cross it out or color it in really helps kids get excited and motivated and off to the next thing, right? Not for everyone, but for some kids. So again, a lot of these things need to be scaffolding depending where your kids are at and their age as well. And then I talked about passion projects. So think about something if you have a topic that your kid wants to explore, right? With this, how can we break this large thing down into smaller pieces? What are the manageable pieces? What to do to make this work, right? And again, it depends on how proficient your child is at the skill. So maybe you ask them to break it down and then you go over it with them to see if that actually makes sense. Or you break it down for them, right? And then they come back and check it off the list. So there are so many different things you can do with this, and they can have say into how they're going to break it down. And then you can even model this for your kids and say, this is what I'd really like to get done today, even if it's household tasks or if it's things for your job. And you can say, this is how I'm trying to figure out how to get it done. This is what I'm thinking I'm going to do this morning. Like, make a checklist. This is what I'm going to do this afternoon. During your reading time, mom really needs to get this done. So it'd be really great if you can, spend 30 minutes with your books or listening to an audiobook so that I cannot be interrupted and really focus on what, that my task is here. So trying to put your more important things where you're going to be more engaged. Okay. And then, like I said, with organization, right? Schooling is different right now. How they're going to keep track of things is different. And they might need more help with that. And you might be confused thinking like, my kid was always organized in school. This was never an issue. But now all of a sudden it is, because it's not school, right? Being at home learning is totally different. And it wasn't something that you and your child decided, we're going to do this together. We're going to homeschool, right? Because this isn't your typical homeschool. So just in conclusion, some other key points I just wanted to make today is to connect with other parents, right? Especially your children's peers, if you are able to. Collaboration is the key to helping you feel more supported, right? And it could also help your kids as well. If some older kids, if they're having trouble with assignments that they're getting from a teacher with not enough instruction, encourage them, is there anyone you can call or go on a Zoom conference with and maybe complete your work together, right? There's nothing wrong with that. They're collaborating, they're talking, they're together, doing work together is a great idea. And then they're getting a little bit of social time as well, right? So instead of you having to spend 30 minutes Googling how to teach your kid how to do this one thing, right? Before you even do that, have them try to get help from a friend. And again, if you feel like you have so much time to fill, like there's too much time and your kid just wants to watch TV and it's battles every day, then this is where we want to try some of the things that I listed above and try to restructure, recreate your day and find those things that your kids are interested in. And that's learning, right? Practicing life skills is learning. So incorporating these activities into your everyday life will make your kid feel more motivated, and you won't be feeling like you have to recreate the classroom. And this is also really helpful when you have kids of multiple ages, because the same activity can be differentiated for different kids, right? Like we even talked about in the kitchen, what young kids can do with that up to older kids. So many of these activities, reading, audiobooks, right? You might have your older kid reading a novel while your younger one is watching story time that's on demand at the public library. Okay. So I just want to end with telling you, you are doing enough. You really are. It feels like the weight of the world has fallen onto parents right now, and it is overwhelming for everyone. And there's no perfect way to homeschool. There's no perfect way to master or balance everything being thrown at you: work, parenting, school, right? And you're doing the best you can do, and that's enough for you and it's enough for your kids. So it's so good to remind yourself that, and to take it easy on yourself, because you are okay. So if you have questions on what I discussed, please send them in. Thank you for watching. On Thursday, we're going to have Craig Nippenberg on here doing a video on the teen brain. So be sure to tune into that. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.